Ladies and gentlemen, it's Preacher! Time to have a bit of a discussion. It's been a bit quiet recently. A little bit of business going on here, but this is the important discussion I think we should have now. We are entering, and I spoke to this with my guild yesterday, one of the most difficult times WoW has seen in a very long time. Why? Number of reasons for this, number of reasons. And what is the big culprit? One is raiding. Certainly the guilds who are PvEing and want to do some mythic content, guilds are collapsing by the day, over and over and over again. Are farming, quitting, and dying. Bleeding is what is happening. The PvE world is actually bleeding right now. One reason, and this is going to get shot for a lot of people, but you only have to look at WoW Progress, considering that Blackrock Foundry has been out for weeks now, is that Blackrock Foundry Mythic... I can't believe I'm going to say it, because I don't feel this way. I think it's important. I don't feel this way, okay, but I see this going on around me. Blackrock Foundry Mythic seems to be, in the most part, too difficult. I said it! I said it. I was the guy. And Blizzard don't agree. Blizzard seems to think it's absolutely fine, but I see that a lot of people are really struggling with the rating level that is currently presented in Blackrock Foundry, and certainly when moving up to Mythic. If we look at WoW Progress, we can see very quickly that the drop-off from the top guilds, say the top 100, down to the guys who are barely killing any few, is just a couple of hundred guilds. That is nobody, considering those are 20-man, yeah? You can click back a couple of pages till, like, 400. The top 400 guilds in the world who are only clearing, say, 4 out of 10 in weeks of progress. Weeks of progress are clearing 4 out of 10. And are hitting walls left and goddamn right. Should they be clearing it super quick? No, I don't think so. There's some definite arguments to be made that they shouldn't be doing it. But as weeks and weeks go on, and people are starting to put in around 100 plus pulls on various bosses, and you're only halfway through the dungeon, people are certainly getting pissy. We haven't seen this kind of thing for a very long time, and dare I say it, since the Burning Crusade. We asked for it, which is why I quite like it. Honestly, I raided a guild that is pretty casual, just 3 days a week for a few hours. That's it. I'm happy with that because it allows me to free up my time to do other things. That's great. I don't mind. I'm used to it. I've stepped back from the raid. I'm okay for it. But a lot of people expect bosses to die faster. They expect it. Because normally, that's what happens. In High Mall, it was pretty cool. The only stumbling block in High Mall was literally Imperator, really. Other than that, 1 or 2 raid nights were getting your bosses down. And that's what people are used to. In the past, they had similar experiences. It was things like Paragon of the Calaxy where they had big trouble. But other than that, you were near the end of the dungeon. People are hitting these stumbling blocks way earlier. Way, way early in the Blackrock Foundry. They're like, oh my god. Have you seen Operator? How difficult that seems to be to get everybody to do it correctly. Blah, blah, blah. Let alone things like the Iron Maidens. And then moving on to Blackhand, of course, which even after weeks of progress, we are seeing some top guilds who are 9 out of 10 collapse very quickly because they are now hundreds and hundreds of tries into Mythic Blackhand with weeks of progress upgrades and still aren't getting it down. It kind of is testament to the accomplishments of Midwinter, Paragon, and Method. It's not hard to see, and I've seen it in my own guild, and I'm receiving many an email from you guys as well, that guilds are getting stressed. They're getting really, really stressed out. And it's not just because of Blackrock Foundry and its difficulty. I think that is one issue. One issue is that bosses aren't dying quick enough, and guilds are starting to struggle after weeks and weeks on something like fucking, I don't know, something as shitty as Gruel or whatever, you know what I mean? These are bosses that are like fucking easy, and these are the easy bosses in there, yet some guilds are really struggling with them. And these aren't bad guilds. They're not bad guilds. If you're in the top fucking 600 in the world, you're not a bad guild. You're not. You're really not. So, yeah, people are struggling. Bad times are happening. But on top of this, I think the out-of-world stuff is starting to grind to a halt. And that includes things like garrisons. I said very early in Warlords of Draenor, I really, really disliked garrisons being basically the same on alts. It's very dangerous. Why? Because you're asking people, whether you know it or not, to give up on things like resources. Every day. And it's very easy to sit back and say, well, you don't have to do it. And you don't. And I've preached this, pardon the irony, several times, is that please, for the love of God, don't feel that you have to do things like mine and herb on your alts. Don't do that. But if you have a profession, and this is where Blizzard's fucked up a bit, in my opinion, if you have a profession, You need to do that if you want to play around with that profession on your alts. If you want to generate good amounts of resources in order to take part in things that are soul-bound, because they can only come from your characters with that profession, hexweave, cloth, whatever it might be, burnished leather, all that kind of shit, you need to be doing that stuff on your alts. And this access is good rewards, good money. You can still sell, even now, crappy 640 epic items for a decent turnover. You can get a few K for it. For what, really? And this is the thing that really stumbles people over. What really is my investment? Logging every day and just pressing the button and swapping my work orders? Multiply that by a few alts. I can tell you now, if I want to accomplish everything on my alts, and I know I'm in the minority with 11 capped alts, but it will take me an hour, hour and a half to do that. That's an hour and a half of my playtime that would be dedicated to just fucking about in garrisons, sorting things out. I want to gear up my followers on my alts because I get nice amounts of raid gear coming from them, whether I manage to raid on my alt or not. And all this kind of stuff starts to mount up as investment, resource management, all this kind of shit that isn't progressing you in any way, but it's there. It's there to be done, and it's there to be done every single day. The garrisons are the worst dailies in the history of the game. And I'm saying this from someone who likes the garrison. I do like the garrison idea. I really do. I like the idea of the garrison. I think it works well. But god damn, does it have to be limited in some fashion because it's putting a huge burden on people because stuff is there. And it'll still be there tomorrow, but I could have twice as much. If I skip 3 days, I can have 3 times as much. Well, I certainly just need to log in and gather my resources because I leave it for a few days, the box fills up. And I need to go and get those, otherwise I'll just be missing out on resources. Those resources could then be used at a trading post to give me resources towards my main character. They're feeding my main, so I don't have to do stuff. And we blindly believe, hey, I'm not having to farm because my alts are giving me free resources. But all that takes time and effort, and it's not fun. It isn't. Logging your alt to click your garrison and set professions going, and God forbid going mining and herbing and then cycling through and collecting your coins each week depending on which buildings you have and all this kind of stuff. It all mounts up as unfun and grindy, constant, never-ending collection of resources to just churn back over and back into the game. It's a prison. We've said this before in a video. The garrisons are a prison if you let them be. And no matter how much, and I tell myself this, as somebody who comes to you guys and says, look, just ignore them, you can't. Every few days, you just really can't. You can't sit there saying, well, I'm missing out on potentially, what, 5,500 resources from my alts? Do I really want to miss out on 5,500 resources and let them go to waste? No, I don't. I really don't. Oh, such a chore. But worse than that, and then it compounds the effect, is that a lot of the rewards, certainly from a main character, assuming you're running one garrison, are actually very, very quickly outdated. And if you have a reasonable item level, or gear level, or progression level, all the stuff available in your garrison is absolutely useless. Apexis dailies can be completely nullified after like 5 days if you want them to be. Yeah? They can be completely nullified once you complete that section of your legendary ring quest. It's just done with. It's over. And now we have access to all this stuff, and none of it is relevant. None of it is relevant. Do I care about summoning a raid boss into my garrison? No, I won't get a reward from doing that. It could be interesting content for my alts, but then again, now we're compounding the effects by moving back to alts to do stuff in my garrisons, to generate gear, and blah, 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 blah. And on my main character, all this crap is pointless. It's pointless. Even if you're not a raider, super quick does the access to missions and all this kind of stuff and group activities within your garrison become very, very quickly outdated and pointless. So quickly does this become useless. And you're left with all these options of things to do, none of which are tempting because they don't reward me with anything worth doing. Now, Blizzard is also struggling with how to reward players. This is why it's a dark time right now. Because this is a great game. WoD is great. I love WoD. And I'm okay with it because I like the TBC style of doing things. But now we're really missing a way of rewarding characters. And Blizzard's really struggling with this. In the recent raid Q&A, which I was going to do a video on, but ultimately ended up being mostly sort of blasé, vague answers, they did talk about 5-man content is already way out of date. Way, way out of date. Access to considerably higher level gear is easily attainable elsewhere. In fact, most people you'll see in a 5-man, if I run one for a video or something like that, are actually just looking for their legendary items for the cores. That's it. Most of the time, if you click a random, you'll end up in one of the dungeons that requires a core, because people are singling those dungeons out for queues. Every now and again, you might get another one, but most of the time, you're actually ended up in one of those dungeons. And once they've got those cores, there is very little reason to go back. Let's say you're an LFR player. Let's put those guys in the mix. Are you going to be using the 5-man heroics in order to gear up for LFRs? No. No, you're not. You're going to very quickly use all the alternate methods of acquiring items and getting gear and progressing your character that are available to you outside of 5-man. So Blizzard's acknowledged this. 5-mans are pretty much worthless right now. They're pointless already after a few weeks. All of them. Every single last one. But Blizzard doesn't know, and they openly said this, how can we incentivize players to do this kind of content? Now, you might think to yourself, well, I don't really want to do 5-mans. Blizzard's got to walk this line. Excuse me, I still have a cough. Blizzard has to walk this line of creating content which is accessible and doable by people outside of raids. Because otherwise, are they logging for anything other than raiding? And if people just find themselves paying monthly to quite literally log in, do garrisons, and then raid, people aren't going to have a good time. You need to give people things to do outside of raids. What can we give them to do, and how do we incentivize them to do that? Sure, I can log in right now. Devil's advocate. I can log in. I can do an invasion. I can go to some raid bosses. I can pick up contracts from my quartermaster to go and do extra stuff. But why? Apex's shards? Come on. Come on. Really? That's not lasting content by any means. Absolutely not. Why would I want to do anything here? I look around my garrison now on my character, and I have a Botani invasion, which is pointless. There's no reason for me to do that at all. I have a war planning map, so I could go and do the fucking Ogron, or I can go to the pit. Why? Apexis? No. Primal spirits? Not really. And, of course, I can go through the Bloodwall slag mines from our High Overlord Saurfang and get myself 175 garrison resources. Like most people right now, I can't really keep myself below 10,000. I keep having to spend them on useless shit. And a lot of people with the main characters who were starting the game are in the same boat. I have resources coming out my ass. I've done all the buildings. I did all that content. That's all done and dusted. So everything that I'm given an option to, I have all these blue wonderful markers. A level 3 in. I have all these blue things telling me this is stuff you can do today. Okay. So I can go and do Upper Blackrock Spire. Why? For a box of Sori treasures? What does that give me? Like 50 gold? I have like so much gold coming from elsewhere. Why would I want to do that? I can go to the Skyreach. What for? 50 garrison resources? How do we reward players? How do we keep them incentivized? Recently, they made a change to cooking, which is on the similar boat. Cooking had become useless content. Completely useless because of the way the barn worked and giving people access to raid food. Raiders loved it. The players loved it. Except those who were like, I've leveled cooking. Why? What purpose do I have in doing this content? And Blizzard was like, you're right. Why do we have this profession in the game that is absolutely pointless? Why do we have that? Let's do something about it then, shall we? Let's give a new type of food, which is a cumbersome burden to everybody who's raiding. In a time, right? In a time where raiding is as accessible as it is, more accessible than ever before, flexible normal, flexible heroic. They then added in a food which gives a pitiful 25 extra stats. And then said, it's a real pain in the ass to get. Enjoy! Now cooking is worthwhile, and everybody who uses raid food or likes to play at their best went, fuck you. Why? Was there anybody really complaining about Savage Feast? Yes, there were. People who were like really into cooking and fishing. People who love that aspect of the game. Am I supposed to mock them? No. They enjoy logging in, putting a movie on and doing some fishing and cooking and trying to get some money out of it. That was their enjoyment. They quite like collecting all the fishing stuff and the cooking hats and all that. Cool. That's how you enjoy the game. I have no problem with that. But the reward, Blizzard's like, well, how do we incentivize people to do that and make it worthwhile? I know. Buff food. Oh. It's about as boring as it could possibly get. Now, if this would have been 2 years ago, when we talked about this kind of thing of rewards, I would have said a better reward would be some kind of fun and optional toys, yeah? Something that makes the game more interesting, keep people occupied. But I can't recommend that anymore. Why? There's more toys coming out of my ass than I know what to do with, and the same with most people. The toy box has singularly added everything I'd collected over the history of the game into one accessible option that I can use for all my characters. And I love it. I love it. That's fantastic. It's cool. Every time I get a decent toy, every single one of my characters has access to it, and I'm grateful for it. If cooking was to reward some other kind of toy, would I be interested in that content, and would the majority of the player base be interested in doing that content? And plus, how long can that last? There aren't that many people using Deviant Fish. In fact, I'm one of the only people I know who still uses Deviant Fish in raids, because I personally love the human models for my rogue. I think they're really cool. I currently have like 600 Deviant Fish on me. But I'm in the minority. I'm in the minority. And one of the reasons for that is there are plenty of toys and things already that change the appearance of my character. They already exist. So therefore, that kind of reward is also pointless. Are you really going to incentivize people to buy cooked recipes that do something to your character to the point where that profession is no longer rubbish when they have access to lots and lots and lots of toys which do exactly the same thing for absolutely no cost? Not really. Toys and all that kind of stuff are kind of going by the wayside because everybody already has them. Most people can access them very, very quickly. Leveling in Walls of Draenor gives you quite a lot of them. If you have an inn, you have access to Millhouse and Gammon very quickly. All the fun stuff is already there, and it doesn't cost me anything. It's just in my toy box. I can do it whenever the hell I want. So I don't need to do that, and cooking wouldn't work that way. Fishing wouldn't provide enough, maybe. It did when Deviant Fish was a regular thing because we didn't have as many toys, but that answer is gone. Do I have a solution for this? No. I really don't know. And Blizzard doesn't really know either. They want to make content outside of raids that is fun and interesting you can do with a smaller amount of people, but what do we give people to go and do it? It was the same issue they had with scenarios. Remember this. Scenarios. Very popular, Blizzard did say. Yeah, because the rewards were absolutely ridiculous. It was the best way to cap your valor points as a raider, was to do scenarios, which most people just didn't enjoy. They were boring as fuck. If once you've done them once, they were great for storytelling, but accessible content that you wanted to do on a regular basis, and I mean want to do, not really. Not really. So now we have this situation we're currently in. It could be, and I think a part of the reason, is that the game's out too long. People have access to so much stuff. So much stuff. That it's very difficult to reward players. And people are being led down the garden path from Garrison to Raid, and currently Blackrock Foundry is destroying guilds. It is. Check out any forums that are going on. Guilds are disbanding so quickly right now because they're struggling. There's got to be tempers flaring in raids right now. Really bad. And what have they got to look forward to outside of Blackrock, which is fun to do? Not a lot. Not a lot. If you're doing anything in Blackrock, which is plenty of guilds, then you're kind of done with all the outside content. Unless you want to go and farm professions, which some of them, as somebody who likes the option to go and do it, some of them, let's say Laughing Skull Rep, for example, on there, I know on my rogue, are just ridiculously long. They're crazy long. It's almost embarrassing. It's like, oh yeah, you had to go and farm the Everbloom Wilds for like 10 hours or something, using some buff, some crazy buff. It's like, fuck off. Really? No, I'm not going to do that. And what's the reward from the bosses? From the mobs? Apexis. Oh, great. Primal Spirit. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I can't wait. That's going to be really awesome. I know that I definitely need to up my Apexis intake. No, not really. And it's a tough time. It's his first time I've actually been stuck for maybe a possible solution here. I certainly hold to my old adage that out-of-game world stuff, like races and things that people can bet on and gamble on, and they have the Physiwix Pleasure Palace, which has race courses and all that kind of stuff. Lots of content like that. Mini-games, certainly mini-games, would be fantastic content for WoW right now. Stuff that doesn't need a huge reward. It doesn't. It doesn't need to have fucking something that raiders feel necessary. It doesn't need augment runes. Like, why the fuck do they exist? I'll tell you why. To promote raiders in some fashion, especially those low on gold, to go into the LFR and help make them more successful. That's why they exist. No other reason. They're not fun. Are they? They're not fun. I think Blizzard almost likes to compare them to world buffs. Wasn't it fun when we could turn in Nefarian's head and Hakar's head? Yes! Yes, it was! It was great fun. Augment runes that are accessible by the auction house in LFR, not so much. That's not quite the same as having a fun raid in Black Temple that would buff the entire raid, and you could do it together and make good gold. That was cool. If they were to do something like that, maybe that would be more fun. If Imperator had, if you could turn in Imperator's head and get a huge buff, that would be awesome. That would be kind of fun. Give us a reason to go back to Highmaul, because right now, no one gives a shit about Highmaul. Fuck Highmaul. Waste of time. Badly itemized gear, low gold, annoying, no thanks. But if they said something like, hey, you know what? We need a head every week, so we're going to do one run on alts and little bits of fun like that. Yeah, cool. But they don't like the idea of world buffs anymore. They've gone off the idea, and they gave temporary experience buffs and all that kind of shit, which most people didn't like. There was very fun times with their augment runes and enhanced stat food, not quite the same. But they still feel mandatory. It's a dark time. It is a dark time. And I know a lot of you are feeling the pressure, and some of you might not even see it yet. But I got to tell you, if you're in the raiding world and you're paying attention, it is iffy right now. It is iffy. So what do I say to you guys? Hold strong. WoW tends to go through these kind of moments. You know the basis of WoD is pretty good. Some of you dislike it, that's fair. But in general, it's actually pretty solid. Maybe just easing up on Blackrock Foundry would be a good idea right now. It could be a good idea. And it has only been a few weeks, and people will no doubt shoot me in the face for saying, oh, don't clear it in 2 weeks. That's a problem. A lot of guilds are barely clearing anything after a few weeks. A lot of guilds. You only have to look at WoW Progress to see that a lot of those guilds barely made any progress, and a lot of those guilds have stopped raiding. They've come to a halt. They have. It's alright throwing numbers at me and say, well, you know, 400 guilds ain't bad after a couple of weeks to kill a couple of bosses in Mythic. I'm telling you now, a lot of those guilds are bleeding members left and right. And you only have to look at the forums to see things like that going on. More so than I've seen in a very, very long time. Very long time. I hate to be a doomsayer because I'm actually saying to you guys, hold strong. And if you want, you can even turn this into an advantage. There are spots opening up in very progress guilds. And a lot of those players will stick around. They've been through tougher times, believe me, they have. The old school guys have seen this before and aren't worried one little bit. I'm not worried. It'll be fine. It's all good. So use it to your advantage. If you're looking to move on, now's the time, honestly. Now is the time. There are spots opening left and right in many guilds. So if you're in that position where you're looking to move on, now is the time. Now is the time. Well, we could still definitely... We need something. We need something that goes on outside of raids and battlegrounds and whatever is your poison that's your end game content. That's your end game content, whether it be PvE or PvP. The game needs more outside there. Because right now, there ain't a great deal, if anything, for some players to do. That is worth doing, more importantly. That is worth doing. There is lots of content to do, but it gives me nothing. There's no benefit to me doing it. It's just a way of passing time in game and rewards absolutely nothing. So it's difficult. It's not easy. Let me know what you think, guys. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.